Welcome to the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast. This is episode number 65. Today, we're talking all about how to break through a plateau and how to learn jiu-jitsu faster and more efficiently. My name is Kieren Lefebvre. I am a blue belt under Adam Childs.
What's up, Kieren? Yeah.
He knows what I was trying to do.
It's a life hack episode.
Life hack.
How to break through, there's how to matrix your way, plug it in, bam, black belt, instant.
Yeah, that would be good.
That would be good. I mean,
But not really.
I remember when I first saw
I think it
the
would be
Matrix, I thought, well, yeah.
Or when he goes, now I know jiu-jitsu or something like that.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
martial art it was.
I think it was jiu-jitsu.
No, or maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen that movie for so long. But yeah, we're going to talk about, some things to improve your progress, how you should be approaching your progress, but also how to deal with those times where you feel like you're not getting any better at jiu-jitsu, which is kind of inevitable to have those periods of time if you train for long enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think you're still on that plateau, right, Kieren? From day one, you're really struggling.
And you still gave me a blue belt.
Yeah.
Joke's on you.
Shit.
Man, I think I've spoken about this sort of anecdote on the podcast in the past, but it's worth repeating just to remind myself. I remember when I was a white belt, I thought I was like stagnant and going through a plateau. And I hit up Joey and I was like all sad, like, oh man, I'm just not getting better. And he's like, bro, it's been 2 weeks. Shut the fuck up. Like he didn't say shut the fuck up, but he was thinking, bro, shut the fuck up. And then he gave me a bit of a spiel on it's kind of like when you're a white belt, it's kind of like being a child, you don't have a good frame of reference because you've only been training for at this point, I'd been training less than 6 months, or around that 6 month mark. And he was basically saying that in your 6 months, 2 weeks seems like a lifetime because it's a significant percentage of the total time you've been training. However, if you extrapolate that to, and he was talking about himself, like my training, I've been training for over 10 years. 2 weeks is a fucking, not even a drop in the ocean, man. And it made perfect sense, like that sort of tying it together. And ever since that conversation, anytime I think I'm stagnant, I just stop, take a breath and be like, nah, bro, shut up.
Yeah. It's the same with kids, right?
Yeah.
That's why the cliche saying of, oh, they grow up so fast and, they go through so many changes so quickly because it's relative to, a week, a 4-week-old baby, a week is a quarter of their life, right? It's a significant percentage of the time they've been alive.
Whereas, and the same is for a white belt, like a week in your jiu-jitsu is a significant portion of that 6 months. Yeah. It really is.
And that, depending on the gym that you train at or how the classes are structured and the influx of new students, it can be easy in the beginning to feel like you're already on a plateau or not getting any improvement. If maybe you train at a small gym or whatever, there's just not a whole bunch of new members coming in, because often when you join a gym, by default, you're the newest, least experienced person there, right? You're brand new to jiu-jitsu. So everything you learn and then try to do in roles and whatever, chances are all your training partners already know it.
Yeah,
everyone's more experienced, and nothing works.
Yeah.
So you feel almost like, not like you're wasting time, but it can be hard to really see that you've progressed at all until someone else new joins, and then all of a sudden you train with that person and you just smoke them. And you're like, oh, that used to be me.
Yeah.
And for some people that happens quickly. Maybe you train at a gym, like I said, that doesn't have a lot of fresh, I almost said fresh meat. Fresh faces coming through.
Fresh happy faces.
That's actually a little segue. It's reminded me, we've got a guy at the gym, Chris, Big Chris, right? He's a blue belt. Successfully, last time he was competing before COVID, he was winning weight division and absolute, and he's a butcher. And then just this morning at the gym, I was just talking to someone, and I was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Chris the Butcher. And I was like, oh, what a name.
That's an epic,
he wouldn't even have to actually be a butcher. Just call him Chris the Butcher.
Chris the Butcher.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that works on so many levels in jiu-jitsu.
So good. And then, because if people go, that's wanky, bro. Like,
he's a
if
fucking
you call
butcher,
yourself
bro.
the butcher, you'd be like, no, bro, I'm a butcher.
Like he's a legit
Like,
butcher.
that's my job. Like,
he handles meat.
Yeah.
But this is a very fortuitous episode topic. And this was planned before episode number 63 released. But on episode 63, we had a comment from one of our longtime YouTube viewers, and they were basically talking. If you haven't listened to 63, go back and listen to that. It was all about what to do after you've gotten
got
a
my blue belt. Now what?
Yeah, you got a blue belt. Now what? So
you will definitely have a plateau.
Exactly. And that's what this guy was basically talking about. He got his blue belt, and then he felt like he was going through that plateau, and now he's broken through it on the other end. But he mentioned that during that episode, and I was thinking, and then I even replied to him, hey, like, we're actually doing an episode on plateaus. So strap yourself in. If it happens again, you'll now be armed with all the tools required.
Or just read this guy's comment and he tells you what to do. Done.
Right? That was more, not really. But anyway, shout out to that
Shout
guy.
out to
that legend.
YouTuber -71.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention their name. They have like a YouTube name. So like,
so what's the point?
Yeah.
So obviously it happens a lot at blue belt. I don't want to spend too much time talking about blue belt specifically because that was episode 63. But, there are definitely some things that are kind of synonymous in the sense of understanding that it's a long process and, to trust that process, that it does. I think you put it perfectly at the start, talking about relative to the amount of time you've trained, and you got to get on board with how long it takes to get good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? Get good is obviously relative as well. Get good, as in winning worlds, or get good as in, of course, everyone's standard of get good is going to be different, but it takes a long time, right? So it doesn't matter, how much work you're putting in 6 months, you can only get so good.
Yeah, exactly. I think that highlights the difference between what you perceive maybe a plateau for you and what is actually a plateau. So I think today's topic is addressing, okay, so you're actually in a plateau. This is not a fake one.
Exactly. Like for me, the amount of time I've been training, like a plateau, before I start having that internal dialogue of, oh man, I'm kind of, not getting any better. Like I'm really struggling to progress in this and that. It would probably need to go on for a few weeks before I would even have that internal dialogue, right? Whereas, someone who's trained for 6 months or maybe even 12 months, they might be having that internal dialogue. And I'm like, dude, you just had one bad roll.
Yeah.
It's just one day, man.
Yeah.
It's cool. That's not a plateau, right?
Yeah.
So, but it seems obvious when you say it. Probably the best thing to help calm yourself down and to trust the process is that unless you compete a lot, the only point of reference are your teammates to compare yourself to in terms of progression, which is fine. And it's a good thing to do. I've spoken previously about having kind of goals against specific training partners. Look at them like a piece of gym equipment. John over there is bench press, and I want to be able to bench press whatever weight or whatever reps. I'll be able to sweep John, right? So that's your point of reference. So maybe I'm not progressing in my ability to sweep John. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not getting better, because John's getting better too, right? So everyone is leveling up together, but because you're comparing yourself to someone who's also progressing for the sake of the argument at the same rate, you can feel like you're not getting any better, which is why competition's a great way to check how you're progressing. But that's the first thing to definitely understand, because even knowing that, you'll be at fault of it all the time, right? I still do it. I'll be like, oh man, this, even if it's with a lower belt, it might be one specific thing that I'm trying to do, against that lower belt. And it's, I don't feel like I'm getting any progress in it, but they're also getting better at whatever, shutting it down, whatever it is I'm trying to do. So you definitely need to understand that that's your main point of reference. That's why usually people get a little almost competition butterflies when like visitors come to gyms, you know, because all of a sudden you're rolling with someone who you don't know. And I'm not talking about gym staunches and, you know, trying to bash up the new guy. I'm not talking about any of that. I just mean it could be the most friendly. You've just gone to some open mat, you know, heaps of people have sometimes open mats at their houses, you know, if they've got space for it. Maybe you've just gone to some friendly open mat, but all of a sudden you're having a roll with someone you don't know. It's kind of like, well, you know, it's like, oh, I can actually, you know, he doesn't know my game. I don't know his game. We're both blue belts. Oh, I can actually see, you know, am I progressing now? Oh man, I smashed that dude. Like either I'm getting really good or he's super shit. Which is sometimes the case too.
Yeah. Rank within rank.
Rank within rank.
Yeah. So after you've sort of, you know, done your soul searching and you've decided, nah, this is a plateau, man. I'm a blue belt. I haven't gotten better and it's been 2 months. My competition results haven't improved. You know, I'm getting smashed by people I used to go toe to toe with. So you've established, yep, this is a straight up plateau. What are some strategies that you can put in place to try and work through that space?
So the first advice I would give is, I'm going to sound like I'm beating a bit of a dead horse here if you've listened to the last few episodes as well as this one. Man, it's hard. And you just got to do the work. I mean, I'm a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I think he's a great, you know, spokesperson and a motivational speaker, even though that's not what he does. He's not a motivational speaker, but you know, if you hear any of his speeches and stuff and his rules for success, like a snippet from one of his speeches he gave while he was governor for California, and he's talking about rules for success. And, you know, like one of the rules is just simply, there's no way out of it. You got to do the work. And I mean, that's true. You can't plug into the matrix and just download all that information. You just have to put in the work. You know, sometimes, yeah, we're going to talk about some strategies to help you maybe, you know, not find it so difficult to put in that work.
Yeah.
But kind of, it would be no different to if you keep failing the bar exam to become a lawyer. You're probably just going to be told, man, you got to study more.
Yeah.
You know, obviously then there's tips and different ways you can study and different ways you can learn, you know, but you essentially as a, you know, umbrella statement, you're going to be told, man, you got to study more. Right. So it's kind of no different to saying, man, you got to train more. So that's the first thing. If you're feeling, and this again, there's some correlation with episode 63 on what to do when you're a blue belt. Like I said in that episode, it's kind of getting your blue belt is you passing the entrance exam. It's now going to get harder, right? So yeah, there's no way around putting in the work.
Right. So you need to check that box first.
Yeah.
You need to ensure that, yes, I am training enough. I'm not just rocking up once or twice a week. Like I'm training to the most of my, like, what I'm willing to / my schedule allows.
That's right. I mean, if you came to me and said, oh, I've only got time because busy life, genuine reasons, I've, you know, whatever, kids, family, work, everything, I can train once a week and that's it, you know, but I love jiu-jitsu. It's legitimately the only time I have, one afternoon a week I can train. Will I get better? I mean, yeah, you will, right? You're going to...
But your plateaus are going to be longer, yeah?
Yeah, you know. So I'm saying that because it's the kind of the first box to tick, you know.
Are you training enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go, man, and the plateaus only get harder to kind of break through, the higher up you get, especially if you're thinking about someone who wants to be a successful competitor. You know, it is significantly more difficult to win high-level competitions at black belt than it is at blue belt, right? So, of course,
should be.
You would think so, right? So, you know, it's only going to get harder to break those barriers. So you need to check, am I training enough? Cool. The answer is yes. You're training enough. You're putting in the work.
So therefore, you need to look at, I think I'm like seeing where this is going. Then if you are putting in enough work, then you need to start working smarter because you're working hard, right?
What's the
Work smarter, not harder. But if
No,
you want,
do both?
yeah,
Bitch.
exactly. I have a problem with that saying because I think you need both. You need to be working hard and smart. So what are some things you can do to improve the time that you have? You've allocated the maximum time you can, or what have you? You're doing enough, but how do you make it more efficient?
Yeah. So because it's not just it's quality over quantity. There is a huge amount of quantity that needs to be put in. I'll actually tell you a story. I've been hammering my students recently that they need to train more because they're putting in quality time, right? They're putting in really focused time when they're in the gym, but they're not putting in enough quantity. And then I got into a discussion with Nogi Rob, right? Which we should have Nogi Rob on as a what would you call it?
A guest co-host.
Yeah, guest co-host. Nogi Rob would be great value to have on one episode. Every question we could be talking about nutrition, and he'll go, "But does it work in Nogi?"
Yeah, that's like the running joke, but he's serious.
Yeah. Every time now when he turns up to a gi class and I teach a technique, he doesn't even ask the question. He just looks at me and he goes, "Ads, you know what I'm going to ask, right?" And then I know he's going to ask.
No, the cross collar choke does not work in Nogi, Rob. For fuck's sake.
Oh God, yeah. So I got into a discussion with Rob and a couple of other people that were essentially trying to justify why they weren't training as much as not only as they should, but that they could, because I know they have enough time to, right? Because I look in their window outside their house. I see them sitting on the couch. They got time.
Yeah, as you're licking the window, you're just taking notes.
Like the kids at the gym. Our gym's got big glass windows and they look atrocious. And I said to someone the other day, I was standing in the gym and I said, "That's why my windows look like that." And they look and there's just a kid outside, like with their face up against the window, licking it. I'm like,
oh man,
I could have someone clean the windows daily and they would still be covered in kid prints and smudges. And anyway, they were trying to kind of justify, but can't I don't have to train. Like I don't have to train, but you're still going to be getting better if instead of coming to the gym and training, you're at home watching instructionals, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, of course, you can still study a lot in the theory, but it is a practical sport. If you've got two people and one does 90% theory and 10% practical and another person who does the opposite, right?
Who's going to win, bitch?
Who's going to win? Especially considering that when you do practical in jiu-jitsu, there's also, in anything, when you practically do it, you're also to some extent doing the theory as well, And he still disagreed with me. And I said, "Nogi Rub," I said, "let's put it like this. You're about to have, brain surgery or something. And you can choose from two surgeons. That guy who's, studied 10, has spent 20 years studying, but he's only done 2 brain surgeries before. And this guy who's, spent pretty much the same amount of time studying, but he's had, way more time practically doing brain surgeries. Like, who are you going to choose? The person who's had more hands-on experience or the person who has book experience? Who are you going to choose, bro?
Yeah. You can't learn how to swim by reading a book, right?
That's right. So you've definitely got to put in the quantity. When you're doing that quantity, how do you do it smarter? I think there's a big disconnect with how people approach jiu-jitsu, and they definitely just think that just rocking up and it being hard means they will get better. You will get better at doing hard jiu-jitsu, which is cool. It's definitely a skill that needs to be learnt as well, especially if you're doing competition. You definitely need to. That's one of the biggest shocks that people who have never competed before have when they first compete. They're like, "Oh man,
so much harder than I thought."
Yeah, I thought I was fit or whatever, and it's different. You need to approach your training with structured goals. or vaguely structured goals at least. The same way that you don't walk into a regular gym and just go, a few bicep curls, I'll pedal on the bike for a little bit. What's that dude doing? I'll try that. No, you would at a bare minimum walk into the gym and go, oh, I'm doing chest today. Even if you didn't know what exercises and what reps, like that would be the bare minimum, right? You would have a very vague, at least, I'm going to the gym to do this, or like I'm going to the gym to run on the treadmill, right? I don't think many people walk into the gym and decide in that moment what to do at the gym. Neither should you with your jiu-jitsu. You should have something that you're working on at a particular time. And let's, for argument's sake, break it up into the months of the year. For anyone who has trained for a significant amount of time, anyone who's trained for 5+ years or even longer would be, the longer you've trained, the better you'll be able to answer this question. But ask yourself, if I asked you in the last 12 months, what part of your jiu-jitsu has improved?
All of it. 12 months ago.
That's right.
Yeah. 12 months ago, I was a very fresh white belt. But I get what you're saying.
12 months ago, you were still sucking on a titty. You were a little baby.
Yeah, I was a baby white belt.
Still sucking on titties. Still sucking on titties. Breastfed into my 20s, baby.
My girlfriend took over the reins. This has got real gross.
But yeah, so obviously if you've only trained for 2 years, saying what you've improved in 12 months, it's a, small, obviously everything.
Yeah.
So that's why
I've been working on lately.
Yeah. So that's what I meant. If you're someone who's trained longer, so let's say if you've trained for 10 years and long enough where you've kind of got this equilibrium in your jiu-jitsu and you're not like hip escape, what? Right? And if you asked, what have you gotten better at in the last 12 months? Most people would struggle to tell you, more than 2 things that their jiu-jitsu has gotten that has vastly improved in a year, right? Because it takes so much time and so much volume, okay? Because let's say you're wanting to get better at bearing bolos, for example, right? And you train like the average person 3 times a week. Let's say it's like the average person trains 2 to 3 times a week. Let's give you the benefit of the doubt. Say you train 3 times a week, right? 52 weeks in the year. Let's put that up to 150 classes you do in a year. And then even if every single class of that year you focus on bearing bolos, there'll be times where it never presents itself in a role or whatever. There'll be times you rock up to class and the whole class is, side control specific training. So it's not like every single class you'll be doing bearing bolos. Okay. So you're not even going to be getting the full 150, but even if you were, I would argue that 150 classes of trying bearing bolos is not enough to get good at bearing bolos. Right? Like I'm just saying that to really emphasize how long it takes to get good at something. So if you want to get good at something, even with a targeted approach to it, it takes a long time. So if you just go, just work on whatever, your progress is going to be all over the place, man. Like it's going to be such a wish-wash of different little bits that'll get better. And then by the time you go back to that, you've lost that progress you had made. Okay. You can draw analogies anywhere. You want to get bigger pecs and you work on them for a while, but then you don't do a single bench press or, dumbbell fly or whatever for 6 months and go back to it. What do you think is going to happen? You would have lost all that progress you initially made. So I break it up into the months of the year to not to not burn myself out on one particular subject. Some people are happy to go bearing bolos the next 8 years. That's all I'm doing. There's some people who are very focused.
Yeah.
And happy to do that.
Yeah.
I get bored. So I break it up into months, right? So I train, more or less 5 or 6 days a week. And then I train 1 or 2 times a day but I'm in the gym, like 4 classes a day every day. So let's just say I do 10 sessions a week. So I get 40 sessions in the month, right? So for 40 sessions, I'm like quite focused on one particular thing, right? And then I move on to something else. And then I can look back at the end of the year and I actually have, for lack of a better word, tangible progress, opposed to it just being a blur of a whole bunch of crap, right? And I think that's one of the first things you can implement to help improve you, not only just progressing your jiu-jitsu, but definitely when you're on a plateau. The perfect example that I could give to you right now is one of our members, Ollie, who's a purple belt and has been focusing on 2 things religiously for the last
at least 12 months.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been 12 months. I was going to say a few months, but it's hard to say because only 3 months ago we were in lockdown. So it's all a bit of a, kind of, I'm not exactly, but let's just say 6 months. Let's split the difference. He's been, so this is longer than a month, right? Which is not necessarily my set in stone advice. I'm just telling you to have targeted goals. So Ollie has been quite religiously focused on improving his over-under pass and his deep half guard. And not only has he gotten better at those 2 positions, like it's really connected to his jiu-jitsu as a whole. Ollie, as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, has leveled up massively in all aspects, right? And especially in those positions, okay? So, and at the moment, he's super focused on it, especially because he has a competition in a few weeks. After that competition, my advice to Ollie would be, okay, bro, man, those are looking really good. Let's move on to something else. You're never going to forget that because it's become such a fun. Yeah. Ollie's also being a purple belt. He's higher up in the sense that he's not going to lose. He's not going to forget what he's gained. So he can kind of leave that for a bit and come back to it. But now he can focus on, I don't know, whatever aspect. He could focus on ways to better improve getting into deep half guard, or he could focus on, okay, let's do these passes for when they're shutting down the over under, or he could even move on to something else like, man, I'm sweeping everyone and then over under passing everyone. But then I'm losing side control. Okay, cool. It's time to spend some focused amount of time on improving your side control, whether that is you submitting from side control, keeping side control, getting to mount from side control, whatever it is you want to do. Okay, but it's only going to get better if you approach it the same way you approached your deep half guard and your over under. Right. And I think, you train with Ollie as well. You couldn't agree more, right? He's gotten so much better, not just at those 2 positions. Like, yes, those 2 positions, but it's almost like those 2 positions leveling up dragged the rest of his jiu-jitsu with him.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't you reckon?
Yeah, so when I joined the gym, he was working on, he just switched. When I first rolled with him as a fresh white belt, he was still doing his worm guard, his spider guard, that style of guard play. Then he went through that transition of being a top player. And so I've sort of seen it as I've been progressing, obviously, alongside it, but I've seen the evolution of the game unravel, as one of my key training partners. And yeah, can absolutely testify that even though what's coming, his deep half sweeps are sometimes unstoppable.
Yeah.
And that's where you want it to be, right? Like if you are training against the same people every day, they know your game before you even go to roll. So they're going to have a somewhat of an idea on what you're trying to achieve specifically. So if you can still do it on someone that knows that it's coming, then it obviously would work on someone that doesn't.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think as well, don't beat your, if you don't compete, you should, but if you don't compete, don't beat yourself up too much as well if your training partners start shutting down what you do. A perfect example is, in an interview or an article or something, Craig Jones, who is known as being one of the best leg lockers in the world, said, in training, I almost heel hook no one. It's because everyone, I train with those same people all the time. They know what I do and they know all the same variations and how to escape them and everything. He's like, man, I can almost never catch a heel hook in the gym. But does that mean he can't heel hook people? No, man. Like, of course he can. So don't beat yourself up as well, thinking that because that same person passed your deep half guard that it's not getting better. That's why competition's such a great way to test yourself. That could even be a simple bit of advice. If you're thinking you're having a plateau, go compete, right? And it might, unfortunately, it might reaffirm your current position of your current thought as to where your jiu-jitsu is, or you might thinking you're having this plateau and you go and you win weight and absolute and you're like, holy shit, fucking smoked them. I must be getting better.
Yeah, 100%.
Or again, maybe your opponent sucked. Or you walk in, you're like, coach, I got the gold. And you're like, yeah, man, how'd your fights go? It's like, oh, well, I mean, no one turned up for my division.
But I still got the gold.
I still got the gold.
By walkover,
bitch. By walkover. Yeah, so that I think not many people do have this targeted approach to their training. Okay. And really, even a month is a small amount of time. I mean, I break it up into a month because I spend such a huge amount of time in the gym. A month is enough time for me. And because sometimes for me as well, I'm at a point where it's usually not a completely new thing I'm learning. Sometimes it might be, for example, when bearing ballers first came along, it's like a completely new technique that kind of no one knows. I remember when they first started, I was a blue belt, and even the black belts didn't know how to invert because they'd never done it before, So, but at this stage, it's rarely a completely, I'm starting from zero. So I don't feel like it takes me as long. I can kind of spend a month on something. The fact that I'm not starting from zero and I spend so much time in the gym, a month is good for me and I can move on to something else. But for other people, man, if maybe you train more of a hobbyist, like a month is a short amount of time. Maybe you train only twice a week that month. 8 classes, man. And
shit, when you put it like that,
and maybe 2 of those classes you weren't even able to get to deep half guard.
Yeah.
So there's 6 classes where you got to do deep half guard, and maybe even of those 6 classes, maybe you're the best, toughest partners who were really going to test whether you're progressing. Maybe they weren't there those days. So maybe like 4 of those classes,
Yeah, and you only rolled for like half an hour, so really you got 2 hours of drilling, or like. So
you could argue that 50% of the amount of time is actually getting to do it. It's such a small amount of time to feel like, So it kind of goes back to our first point of that it's all relative, how long you've been training and the amount of time that you're actually putting in. That's why it's not just train smarter, not harder. It's like, you got to do both, man, because you can train as smart as bloody, the highest level of jiu-jitsu geek in the world. But those jiu-jitsu geeks and nerds are putting in huge amount of quantity as well, right? You think guys who are, let's say, one of the more current, I say with love, jiu-jitsu nerd like Mikey Musameshi, people just go, man, he just nerds out on jiu-jitsu. You think he's just sitting around doing theory and he then, actually gets on the mats for 30 minutes a day, a couple of times a week? No, hell no, bro. He's putting in so many hours. So the fact that when you break all the numbers down, you realize, oh yeah, I actually probably did 1 to 2 hours of deep half guard in this entire month.
And I think because
what skill in the world do you make huge gains in by doing it for an hour?
Sitting quietly. I have no idea.
Imagine if you practiced your guitar, like you wanted to learn a musical instrument, and you actually put in an hour of guitar practice a month.
You're probably not going to get better.
That is very, very minimal.
Yeah, you're probably never going to get better, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And because I think...
I know I sound like I'm always just telling people that it's hard, but like it is. And,
some people need a reality check.
Yeah, bro.
Like some people need to be told that, wake up. Third eye. But jiu-jitsu is so huge. Like you've said so many times, there is so much to learn in this sport. I think that if you try and learn everything, you'll fail, because even as you've said, even the best guys in the world don't know everything. They're not experts at everything, right? So you need to choose one or two areas that interest you, one or two areas that complement your physique, that complement your current like game style, and focus on those.
I always draw parallels from other professions that are the exact same, right? There's medicine. No doctor knows everything. That's why, that's why you don't go to a brain surgeon to do your triple bypass, right? Because they don't know how to do that surgery. And, yes, they have. That's why you don't go to Hodger Gracie for a bolo seminar, right? Like you can't, yes, you're going to have an over like a arching wealth of knowledge in jiu-jitsu or in medicine as a whole. But, it's why you go to GPs, because they're someone who kind of ties it all together. But again, you're not going to, that's why a GP refers you to someone else, because then they don't know about all the intricacies of that hip replacement that you need done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And same with law. It's one of the things that's so wrong about, watching a criminal show or something where this one lawyer seems to be an expert in criminal law and custody law and, union law and all. No,
so
man,
you need to subspecialize.
That's right. So same with engineers. You become an engineer and then you go on to become a civil engineer or a maritime engineer or whatever sort of engineer it is, because there's too much information, man.
Yeah.
Of course, any engineer is going to have great sound, fundamental understandings of engineering, same way that any like proficient professional in jiu-jitsu will, but you should have certain stuff.
And that's going to help you break through that plateau. So
100%.
So let's put ourselves in someone's shoes that they're like, yeah, okay, boys, like, fuck, I know all this. I've done this. I've selected my areas, but I'm still plateauing. What would you say to someone that has chosen their like the specialty that they want to go down? Like maybe they see that their game's really weak on the bottom, like me. My guard is shit, so I've gone and said, hey, I'm going to choose half guard. Now what?
So one of the best bits of advice that I could give, and I also remember seeing at a time Lachlan Giles saying this, which is, man, don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of people who have already tried and proven what you're trying to do. So just copy them. Right? It's one of the best and quickest ways to improve. Once you've got that down, then you can start not even reinventing the wheel, just making a faster wheel or whatever you want to say. So don't just completely go, okay, half guard, I'll figure this out by myself. Oh man, look at some of the best half guard players in the world. I mean, obviously you've got your instructor, you can ask your instructor, but like I said, not everyone's an expert in everything. They're going to be able to help you, but your particular instructor, half guard may not be their specialty.
So maybe in the analogy of medicine, like you just said, they could be like the GP in that case and refer you on to, hey, check this guy out, watch these guys fights, or check out this style, watch this instructional.
So they could be saying, oh, don't take that antibiotic, it'll kill you. But, so they can help you a bit, don't do that, you'll get guillotined or whatever. But then they could also be like, okay, look, that's as far. I think a good coach should be humble enough to
not make shit up,
and realize that
they don't have to know everything.
Yeah. Fabio once told me that, so if one of Fabio's students, in the sort of lineage, you got like Fabio Cabrinha, Michael Lange. Michael Lange's known as one of the best Spider Guard players in the world. He's now actually the head coach of Alliance São Paulo, the Alliance headquarters. Fabio is not known whatsoever as a Spider Guard player, right? But did he have the tools to take Lange to a level where Lange could then go on to, and develop his own Spider Guard and his own, like he had the tools to take him there and to guide him there. So a good coach should be able to do that too. Like help you with your half guard and get you to somewhere that either you can then progress it by yourself or, like you said, refer you on to someone else. So people have already done a lot of the work, and you don't have to reinvent it. You want to get better at heel hooks. Why would you sit around and try to figure it out by yourself? There was so many top level guys. Obviously, let's just put the whole Danaher Death Squad, even though they're disbanded, let's just put them in the whole bubble. They're like known as the best leg locker guys in the world. Just learn from them. There is, so many instructionals, YouTube breakdowns, BJJ fanatics that do, little snippets from their instructionals. And don't try reinvent the wheel. Yes, you can get to a point where you're one of the top in your field of medicine and you can start like developing new technologies in medicine, right? But you're not going to be a med student and go and try to change the way that, heart surgery is performed. It's like, well, you like get to a certain point and then you can try develop new surgeries or whatever you want to say. Right? So look at other people. If you're struggling, you've kind of checked all these boxes that we've spoken about. You're training enough, but you've chosen what you're. So the main things, right, that we've ticked off, blah blah blah. It's really hard, right? So you've ticked that box. You're putting in the quantity and you're training smart. You've picked a targeted goal, so you're not just walking in going, "I'll just do whatever and hope I get better." Right? You've got a targeted goal. Man, I want to get better at taking the back, whatever it is. Right? But you're still plateauing. Look to some of the people who are the best in the world at that. Why wouldn't you? It is, to some extent, it's a free resource. Free in air quotes,
Yeah.
YouTube instructionals or whatever. It's like, man, we're not in the early 2000s where you have to, there's wealth of knowledge. Read the
Gracie magazine, as you said.
That's right. Yeah. You fly them out for a seminar, So there's even some of these people are super accessible. Ollie, who was working on deep half guard and over underpassing, he actually sent Lel Nogueira, who's black belt world champion as well, plays a lot of half guard and a bit of deep half guard. Used to like close out the brackets with Bernardo. They were teammates and everything. He actually sent Lel a message on Facebook being like, "Oh, bro, I'm watching your instructional but I just have a question about this." And he actually responded and, so.
He made him a video as well.
And Lel even recorded a video answering the question and sent it back.
Yeah.
So shout out to Lel, what a legend. Obviously not everyone's going to do that or have the time to do that. Would be very hard pressed to think that someone like, Gordon Ryan or something's going to take the time. Yeah. I mean, he'll probably reply to you calling you a piece of shit, whatever online trolling comment.
No. You gave him money. He'll say thank you.
All right. Yeah. Gordon, I pirated your instructional. I'm watching this part. What do I do here? So you've got your targeted goal. Fine, and we're saying maybe you're wanting to get better at Spider Guard, and your coach is Michael Lange. Okay, you've got like probably the best resource to go directly to him. But maybe if you said to me, I want to get better at Spider Guard, I can help you. There's fundamental concepts and things and whatever that I can 100% help you with. But it's not my game. I'm not an expert at Spider Guard. So then I'm going to refer you to someone like Michael Lange or whoever, people who play lasso guard and whatnot. And then we can work together to some extent where you might come back with something. And if I see a Spider Guard technique, I can watch it and instantly understand what's going on and how it's all working and whatnot. Whereas you might not. And then I can help you, kind of like when you get like an MRI or something and you're like, I can read these words, but I have no idea. You need someone to translate it for you. Yeah, so you
take it to your physio.
Yeah. So, kind of like that. You could be, and Ollie was doing the same with Lel's instructional, and he's watched Bernardo's instructional and stuff. Yeah, he messaged Lel and Lel wrote back, but there were even other stuff that he was like, man, like it says to do this and blah, 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 but this is happening. I'll be like, oh man, like, but see here, this is going on, blah, blah, blah. And be like, oh, right. Yeah. Oh, okay, fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
So I really think that you could put it just into those 3 points, right? Of, understanding it's hard / it's relative. 2 weeks is not a plateau. Yes, if you've only trained for a year, it can feel like it.
But it's not. Yeah.
But no, I don't want to say that. Yeah, no, 2 weeks isn't a plateau. Like I said, for
agree.
me, the amount of
not.
time I've trained, it would have to be pushing 4-6 weeks, maybe even 2 months before I'm like, oh my God, like it's just not getting any better. I have some people who come into the gym who, well, one person in particular who they're a white belt and they've trained for long enough to be a blue belt in terms of time. They've trained for like 3 years, but there has been 2 lockdowns. However, on average, they train once a week, maybe once or twice a fortnight they train on average, because they'll train like 1 week 3 times and then they don't train for another 3 weeks, right? Or something like that. So they're like, oh, I'm not getting any better. Like, bro, because you're not training.
Yeah, you're not consistent.
And this plateau, of course, is going to feel like it's lasted 6 months because you've done 10 classes in 6 months. So first tip, first bit of advice, are you putting in the time, right? Yes, you're training hard and smart, tick. Right. What was number 2?
Number 2 was select an area. So
and yours is?
Choose an area. Mine's half guard.
Half guard.
I didn't expect to be questioned. I thought you were just going through the monologue. I was like, yep. And then you're like, what's number 2? I'm like, hang on a minute. It's like this directed at me.
It's like in kids' classes.
Yes.
Like I teach the kids once a week still, and every technique. The kids class that I teach is not the teens yet. They're usually anywhere from 4 to 8 years old. And it doesn't matter what I teach. I try to only have it executed in 3 steps, right? And I was doing one the other day. Man, I don't know how many times I showed it, but it was like step 1, stand next to your partner. That was it, right?
And then you ask them, right?
Yeah, so I show them and I show them multiple times, and then I'll just pick a random kid and I'll be like, Steve, what's step 1? Step 1, I don't know. And then, someone else will be like, okay, Paul, what's step 2? He'll say it, And I remember I kept coming back to that kid. Steve, step 1. Like, man, so many times I was like, okay, get your kid. I need you to focus, bro.
Are you putting in the work? Are you studying at home? Fucking Steve.
So pick an area, right? Have targeted training. No different to if you get a PT, they're going to give you, this is your program for 6 to 8 weeks, and you're going to be doing the same exercises. Yeah, the weights and repetitions might change a bit, and usually at the end of 6 to 8 weeks, you're like, you're fucking sick of doing pull-ups, and then it changes. The program changes, right? Similar thing, man. You're going to have focused work that you're working on. So pick an area. And then number 3 would be?
Number 3 is to stand on the shoulder of giants, baby.
That's right. There's other people who have already put in the work, and then you're going to reach a certain level that then, you always want the student to become the master, right? Obviously, if the student never becomes the master, there's no progression. So stand on, climb up them. And then once you get to their shoulders, you have their same vantage point that then you can start seeing shit.
And then someone climbs up yours.
That's right,
eventually.
Bro. Eventually someone then supersedes you.
And
that's
we're not
how
saying
it
that
should
everyone
be.
that's listening to this needs to be like a world champion and one day release their own fucking instructional.
But you could, because they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah, well, fuck. I know, right? Speaking of, buy my instructional now on BJJ Fanatics /Kieren is the best.
And buy mine on Adam, how to eat ice cream and cake. Still be good at jiu-jitsu.
Ooh.
What was this? Episode 64, we spoke about nutrition for beginners. Kieren said, I can't eat Thai food. I said,
that's not what I said.
Kieren, shut up.
You've been talking a lot of smack about that.
Yeah,
we'll take this one off air.
There's a big blow up at the gym, and everyone else is like, what's wrong with Thai food?
Nah, you got to listen to the episode. This is bullshit.
Well, until you listen to the episode, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yep. Fair. Okay. On that note, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Beyond Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Hopefully you can take these 3 key points away. And if you have any follow-up, maybe you've already done all 3 of them and you're still on a plateau, well, we want to know. So submit a question to the show. You could do so via our Instagram.
And how do they do it on Instagram, Kieren?
You click the link in our bio, which will take you to our link tree, and it's the first link in the link tree. Submit question. It's an audio format. You can do it on your phone.
Audio is in, they can talk.
They can talk.
And then hear their voice on the podcast.
Exactly.
They don't have to type it out.
Exactly. And we don't have to read it.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
It's amazing. So submit your audio questions to the show and hear your voice. So we are recording the Q&A episode really quickly. It's coming up in like 2 weeks from, well, a week. We're actually recording it.
A week by the time this is.
When this airs, we are recording it.
Yeah.
Like if you're listening to this, we are recording it in the next couple of days. So make sure that you get your questions in.
Even if it's not a question, guys, feel free to just send in feedback. You guys suck.
Yeah.
I hate
just
your
make it funny.
podcast. Yeah. You know, but honestly, if you want to, you could send something in, be like, yeah, man, awesome.
Like, this is why.
Yeah. Or even to say, yes, sweet. I'm going to focus on Spider Guard to break through the plateau. Yeah.
We want to hear about it. So submit your audio questions, comments, concerns, or
your question could be, I want to work on, bearing bowlers. Who could you recommend? Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
In what format, Kieren?
Audio
format. That's amazing.
This is a podcast. Audio.
You can hear it with your flappy things on the side of your head.
They're called ears. Write that down. But on that note, thanks so much for listening to this episode. And until next time,
just tape it.